3 feet from gold. During the gold rush, a man who had been mining in Colorado for several months quit his job, as he hadn't struck gold yet, and the work was becoming tiresome. He sold his equipment to another man who resumed mining where it had been left off. The new miner was advised by his engineer that there was gold only 3 feet away from where the first miner stopped digging. The engineer was right, which means the first miner was a mere 3 feet away from striking gold before he quit. The moral of the story? When things start to get hard, try to persevere through the adversity. Many people give up on following their dreams because the work becomes too difficult, tedious, or tiresome, but often you're closer to the finish line than you may think. And if you push a little harder, you will succeed. Rocks, pebbles, and sand. A philosophy professor once stood up before his class with a large empty mayonnaise jar. He filled the jar to the top with large rocks and asked his student if the jar was full. His students all agreed the jar was full. He then added small pebbles to the jar and gave the jar a bit of a shake so the pebbles could disperse themselves among the larger rocks. Then he asked again, "Is the jar full now?" The students agreed that the jar was still full. The professor then poured sand into the jar to fill up all the remaining empty space. The students then agreed that the jar was full. The metaphor. In this story, the jar represents your life, and the rocks, pebbles, and sand are the things that fill up your life. The rocks represent the most important projects and things you have going on, such as spending time with your family and maintaining proper health. This means that if the pebbles and the sand were lost, the jar would still be full and your life would still have meaning. The pebbles represent the things in your life that matter, but that you could live without. The pebbles are certainly things that give your life meaning, such as your job, house, hobbies, and friendships. But they are not critical for you to have a meaningful life. These things often come and go and are not permanent or essential to your overall well-being. Finally, the sand represents the remaining filler things in your life and material possessions. This could be small things such as watching television, browsing through your favorite social media site, or running errands. These things don't mean much to your life as a whole, and are likely only done to waste time or get small tasks accomplished. The moral of the story? The metaphor here is that if you start with putting sand into the jar, you will not have room for rocks or pebbles. This holds true with the things you let into your life. If you spend all of your time on the small things and insignificant things, you will run out of room for the things that are actually important. In order to have a more effective and efficient life, pay attention to the rocks because they are critical to your long-term well-being. The elephant rope. When walking through an elephant camp, a man noticed that the elephants were only secured with a small rope that was tied around one ankle. He wondered why the elephants didn't break free from the rope, as the elephants were certainly strong enough to do so. He asked the trainer why the elephants didn't try to break free, and the trainer responded by saying that they used the same size rope for baby elephants all the way up to adulthood. Because they're too small when they're babies to break free from the rope, they grow up being conditioned that the rope is stronger than they are. As adults, they think the rope can still hold them, so they don't try to fight it. The moral of the story? The elephants in this case are experiencing learned helplessness. This phenomenon occurs when someone has been conditioned to anticipate discomfort in some way, without having a way to avoid it or make it stop. After enough conditioning, the person will stop any attempts to avoid the pain, even if they see an opportunity to escape. If you go through life thinking that you can't do something just because you have failed at doing it in the past, you're living with a fixed mindset. You have to let go of your limiting beliefs in order to make the breakthroughs that are required for your ultimate success. Don't let other people tell you that you can't do something, and don't hold on to an assumption that you can't grow and learn from past failures. A wise man's jokes. A wise man once faced a group of people who were complaining about the same issues over and over again. One day, instead of listening to the complaints, he told them a joke, and everyone cracked up laughing. Then the man repeated the joke. A few people smiled. Finally, the man repeated the joke a third time, but no one reacted. The man smiled and said, "You won't laugh at the same joke more than once. So what are you getting from continuing to complain about the same problem?" The moral of the story: you're not going to get anywhere if you keep complaining about the same problem, but do nothing to fix it. Don't waste your time complaining, expecting other people to continue to react to your complaints. Instead, take action to make a change. It's never too late. In the 1940s, there was a man who, at the age of 65, was living off of $99 Social Security checks in a small house, driving a beat-up car. He decided it was time to make a change, so he thought about what he had to offer that other people may benefit from. His mind went to his fried chicken recipe, which his friends and family love. He left his home state of Kentucky and traveled throughout the country, trying to sell his recipe to restaurants. He even offered the recipe for free, asking for only a small chunk of the money that was earned. However, most of the restaurants declined his offer. In fact, 1,009 restaurants said no. But even after all of the rejections, he persisted. He believed in himself and his chicken recipe. When he visited restaurant number 1010, he got a yes. His name? Colonel Heartland Sanders. The moral of the story: There are a few lessons that you can take away from this story. First, it's never too late in life to find success. In a society that often celebrates young, successful people, it's easy to start to think you're never going to be successful after a certain age. However, Colonel Sanders is an example that proves that argument wrong. This story also demonstrates the power of persistence. You have to have confidence in yourself and believe in your work for other people to believe it also. Disregard anyone who tells you no and simply move on. The boulder and the gold. There was once a king who decided to do a little experiment. He had a giant boulder put right in the middle of the street. He then hid near the boulder to see who, if anyone, would try to move it out of the way. First, some wealthy merchants walked by. They walk around the boulder complaining that the king hasn't been maintaining the roads very well. Next, a peasant walked by, heading home with his arms full of food for his family. When he noticed the boulder, he put his groceries down and attempted to move it out of everyone's way. It took him a while to move it, but he eventually succeeded. After the peasant gathered up his groceries to carry on home, he noticed a bag lying in the middle of the road, just where the boulder once was. He opened the bag to find that it was stuffed full of gold coins, along with a letter from the king saying that the bag's gold was a reward for the peasant to keep because he had taken the time and energy to move the boulder out of the road for the convenience of others who would be traveling the road in the future. The moral of the story. The peasant in this story was taught by the king that every obstacle you face offers an opportunity to improve. If you're able to push through moments that are challenging, you may end up being much better off than you were before you started trying. This story also offers a lesson of personal responsibility. If you see a job ahead of you, don't leave it for the next person to do. Rather, step up and get the job done to help the people who come after you.